Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Leslie Rogers. I am a psychologist and host of Mental Health Talk. And welcome. I am excited today to introduce you all to my guest, all the way from California, Joel Relampagos. Joel is a TV executive producer and founder of the mental wellness program, Change Your Algorithm. A majority of his TV work was executive producing NBC's hit weight loss show, The Biggest Loser. He also executive produced the Student Debt Show, Going from Broke, alongside with actor Ashton Kutcher. Joel is currently show running for LeBron James' production company, Spring Hill, in this mental wellness program, Change Your Algorithm. Joel continues to provide free mental health support across the world. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Leslie. Appreciate you.
I thank you. I'm so glad that you are on here and that you agreed to be a guest. I think your story is amazing. You know what? All the guests that come on here, their stories are amazing. You get a different piece of different people. So I think it's awesome. What's this thing with LeBron James that you're doing?
Yeah, so we're doing a show called Recipe for Change. And every episode covers a different marginalized community. So it is inevitable that, every episode is something that I'm so passionate about. We just had a Stop Asian Hate episode a few months ago. This one we're working on standing up to anti-Semitism. I can't say what's to come yet, and it's very soon. But it's really, really exciting and really rewarding to work on a show that is meaningful and inspirational, because there's a lot of shows out there that can be toxic. So I feel good when I wake up and I say, all right, this is my job. I feel good about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I watch you a lot on Instagram, and I see your videos about anxiety. So you're doing a great job out there, putting the word out there and spreading awareness to decrease anxiety and decrease stigma. So kudos to you. What motivated you to talk about mental health?
Yeah, growing up, immigrant, moved out here when I was 6, Filipino, strict Catholic home. Mental health was not a conversation at the dinner table. Nothing wrong with how, I was raised, because that's how my parents were raised, right? And so, and I grew up not understanding the value of mental health and how we all have mental health. It's just a matter of, is it being taken care of?
Yeah.
I found myself in my adulthood reaching places of anxiety, depression, and then eventually addiction with alcohol. There came a point where I was drinking about 2 bottles of wine a night, and no one knew about this duplicitous life that I was living. But it wasn't until I decided that I needed to get help. And when I asked for help, it came in the form of checking myself into rehab for 50 days and working with mental health professionals. And I absolutely fell in love with mental health. And then I remember leaving thinking, holy moly, how is this not offered to everyone? Especially at a young age when we are really going to schools, right? And so I left and I created Change Your Algorithm, which is now a free mental wellness program with volunteer mental health professionals. And everything that we teach are the things that I learned in rehab. And while rehab was about recovering from drugs and addiction, this is more about just understanding that we're all recovering from something, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's okay to not be okay, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you actually seek out mental health, or did you have people in the background pushing you toward getting help?
Yeah, so it was something that I played around for years. I would think about it, and then I would go, but if I go to rehab, that's going to make me look weak. Mm-hmm. Or if I go to rehab, that means I'm asking for help.
Yeah.
If I go to rehab, that means that people are going to know my business. And this had gone on for years. And so eventually, when it got to the point where I woke up in the middle of a pile of empty wine bottles, I said, I can't do this. And so I actually called my dad, and he was the very first person that I told, and he was shocked. He didn't know that I had a drinking problem more than I got to the extent where I really needed help. And so he was my he was championing me through it, which was
Yeah.
really nice to see.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you had that support system. And were you in the industry then, or was this before you were in the industry?
Yeah, I basically got in the industry since I was 20,
Mm,
21, when I came out on national
mm,
television, and I stayed in the industry. But
mm.
it's interesting because a lot of the hard workingness, the dedication, the passion of me in the industry had to do with my sense of unworthiness. Because
Yes.
if you think about it, here's an industry where literally you want ratings, you want people to watch,
Yeah.
you want attention in a sense. And while it paid off professionally, personally, it wasn't filling that void that had
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. But you know what's great news is that I'm sure a lot of folks in the industry feel that way, the similar ways that you feel. And I asked you that question intentionally because, I would imagine that people in the industry are guarded, especially around mental health. Like, what do I talk about? When do I get help? If I get help, what are people going to think about me, right? How is that going to impact my career, right?
Absolutely. And it's a real thing, not just in entertainment, but now living in Los Angeles, working in entertainment where it's all about looks. It's all about, well, I don't want to say all about. Looks is a big part of it.
Yeah, it
Success
is.
is a big part of it. Shiny things is a big part of it. Who you know is a big part of it. What's the title on your,
Right.
uh, parking spot is a
Uh-huh.
big. But I really got caught up in the idea that my job is who I am when I had to really come with a realization that that's not who I am, it's what I do.
Yeah.
And because I was such a workaholic in a sense, I was neglecting parts of me that needed self care, that needed
Yeah.
compassion, love, and kindness.
Yeah, yeah, and you're absolutely right. Hollywood and being out there in the industry, it is about perception and looks, attractiveness, and things like that. Let me tell you, I went to had to do work in California, in LA, and I had to go to J Lo store and buy me some J Lo jeans to fit in because no one paid me any attention the way I was dressed back home in Maryland. So absolutely, and I can imagine how that can be kind of difficult for people that's trying to break into that industry as well. Absolutely. Now, Joe, how do you define mental health?
Oh gosh, how do I define mental health? It's how we choose to live and respond to our thoughts or not respond to our thoughts. It's how we tell stories to ourselves.
Mm,
It is how we do the house cleaning of our mind when things no longer serve us.
mhm,
It's how we choose to go and how we choose to attach ourselves to beliefs and relationships.
mhm.
It's one of the most beautiful things. And
Wow.
it is something that we all have,
Mhm,
being able to understand that, oh, I'm not into mental health. I'm like,
mhm.
oh, you're into mental health whether you know it or not,
Yeah,
because mental health is health, you know?
yeah. I think what's challenging, I think people get it confused, mental health versus mental illness. And because it's often used interchangeably, it's difficult for people to say, yeah, I have mental health. We all have mental health every day. It's how we get up out the bed and go to work, right? And do the things that we need to do. But mental illnesses, guys, are diagnosable. It's different. Mental illnesses are diagnosable. And it means that we have significant issues that impact our day-to-day living. So, for instance, if we have depression, we might not be able to get up in the morning and go to work, as we will with positive mental health, right? So, thinking about coping skills and things of that sort. So, I think that makes it really challenging because people get that kind of confused.
Absolutely. And I always talk about how mental health is something that we absolutely need to take care of, because when it comes to physical health, no one's getting shamed or
Yeah.
feeling insecure about that, right? When I say I go to
Hmm.
the gym, I don't feel people aren't going to make fun of me for going to the gym like, "Oh, are you okay?
Yeah.
Is your
Yeah.
okay?" Right? But there's still that stigma of, "Oh my gosh, I shouldn't tell people that I saw a therapist." I shouldn't tell people that I'm thinking about seeing a therapist. But truth of the matter is, seeing a therapist, it doesn't even mean that you have a problem. It means that you're preventing one.
Yep.
You know?
Intervening. Being proactive. Yep. Now, Joe, what is most important in maintaining a healthy, positive mental health to you?
To me, it's replacing judgment with compassion. I think that we live in such a judgmental society world. Everyone wants to put in their 2 cents. People are leading with opinion versus example. That if we be the change and we start to replace judgment with compassion, that's where the healing begins. That applies to judgment to other people, and that certainly applies to judgment towards ourselves. Because when we start to practice compassion, that's when we don't feel like we're beating ourselves up anymore. That's when we're actually exploring vulnerability and what that's like.
Right.
Because when I used to be so judgmental of myself, that's when that would lead to guilt, shame, and I wasn't getting any healing done. I was just beating myself up. But it's that compassion, especially during moments of pain and suffering, that would exercise my mind and go, oh, this is what I can do when I'm going through a hard time. I treat myself nicely and with love and kindness versus calling myself names, which is something that I used to do. I call myself negative names.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people do, right? And it's difficult. It's a bit challenging to say love yourself, right? And not knowing how to love yourself. But it's that practice, to get into practice to love yourself. And there's different ways that you can love yourself. You talked about being nice to yourself, being kind to yourself. Sometimes we don't know how to do that.
I'm so happy that you said that because, I do think there's a lot of people that go like, well, how do you love yourself?
Yeah.
How do you express? How do you talk to yourself as if you were like the younger version of you? And I do think that is something that needs to be taught because it's so important. Because my very first time just doing talk therapy, the therapist said, yeah, let's practice self-love. And I almost rolled my eyes because I was like,
I was so cliche.
Love. Like, of course I love myself. You know what I mean? Like, what? You want me to like hug myself? Like I was shooting it down and making fun of it. But it is how you have that relationship with yourself, because that's the relationship each of us are going to be in, right? Is with our.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joe, a vast part of your work has been on TV, producing reality TV shows, right?
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, you started out as a contestant on a show, right? What were initial challenges to that?
I was.
Show that you were on.
I was a subject in a documentary, and I was on True Life. I'm coming out for MTV, and this was when True Life for MTV was like really covering some groundbreaking stuff, like True Life. I'm addicted to plastic surgery. True Life. Racial issues in America. True Life. I'm on ecstasy or whatnot, and it was just very like, whoa, what are these topics on an MTV show, right? And they were doing their very first coming out episode, and they wanted young adults to come out on camera. And so I wrote my story to MTV when I saw the casting call.
So wait a minute. So when you say come out, what do you mean by that?
I had to tell my family that the show was about college kids growing up, because I had to say the words "I'm gay" to them while the camera was.
Wow. So you said that earlier. I caught that earlier. You said I came out on national TV. So this is what you mean. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love that experience.
It was the wildest thing, but also one of the best things I'd ever done. And it also taught me just the power of telling your story. Because the reason why I did that was because I wasn't seeing anyone like me on television who was from the LGBTQ community. I had no mentor in that sense, but I also knew that there couldn't have been anything wrong with me, but I'm also being told by people left and right that, being gay is wrong. There's something, you shouldn't do that. It might be a phase, but in my mind, I was like, I feel like this is genuinely who I am, and I'm not choosing to be this person. And so I wanted to tell my story so that I could show other people that were like me that there's nothing wrong with them. They have nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah. How was that received by your family and by friends and by others that were surprised? Or were
Yeah,
they surprised?
my sisters were surprised. My dad not so surprised. My mom, I would say, was in denial about it, and when it aired, it was received very well. So much so that I switched my career from pre med to television because I think in a Filipino household, a lot of it is get into medicine, be a nurse, be a doctor, and that's kind of all I knew. And if there was ever a reason that I wanted to get into medicine, it was because I would want to save a life. And then after I told my story and people would tell me I was suicidal, you changed my life, you saved my life, I then realized, wow, there's more than one way to save a life. And even telling
Absolutely.
a story can save a life.
Because you know why that is, right? Because every time you come out and tell your story, you're validating somebody else's experiences.
That's right.
And you're normalizing it and you're saying it's okay, you're not alone.
Yeah, common humanity.
Yeah, that's powerful, right?
Yeah, I love it so much. And it's so fascinating to me that, and this is, coming from someone who used to have that depression and suicidal ideations at a certain point, where the mind does a really good job of making you feel like you are the only person out of billions of people that is going through this very, very difficult experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's why telling our stories is so important and healing.
Yep. And healing. Guys, this is Joel Relampagos. We're talking about mental health, TV producer from California. So were you immediately accepted into the industry as a gay male?
I luckily enough was, because MTV knew me as the Filipino kid that came out of the closet. I called them for a job as soon as I saw the show and I saw the response from other young adults, and they didn't even hesitate. I had this like little assistant job, working the Grammys, and then I just moved my way up from there.
Yeah. Let me ask you really quickly. Do you think that we as society are moving in the right direction toward supporting the LGBTQ plus community? Do you think that we're moving in the right direction, or do you think we have a long way to go? Or
I think it's a slow burn. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are really not educated in many issues, whether it's social justice, racial justice, LGBTQ justice.
yeah,
I think that it is up to us to raise awareness and educate others, because fear, racism, bigotry, prejudice, a lot of that stems from ignorance and being raised a certain way,
yeah,
and while it may or may always not exist, I think that not waiting for change is the right way to go, and you actually have to be the change, which is why I did that. I wanted to speak out on camera on a national television show, which is why I created my own mental wellness program. I'm not ever the guy that's sitting around and waiting, because you might be waiting for a long time.
Yep. Yeah, and I thought that was an important question to ask. So this is I hold a room called Men Suffer Too, and I'm going to read this passage real quick.
Beautiful room.
Yeah. So it says, shout out to all the men going through mental illnesses with no one to turn to because this world wrongly taught males to mask their emotions. Men suffer. Men have suicidal thoughts. Men die by suicide. We need to encourage men to speak up and not expect them to man up. I thought that was so powerful. What do you think about that passage?
Yeah, I think that is so true and so accurate, and to be able to look back at my upbringing and, to hear things like, boys don't cry, don't act like a girl, don't hit like a girl, like that really is so damaging.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so hyper focused now of like other kids today being told that, because as someone who turned that into a belief system, because all of these things just summed up to the one, you know, it's summed up to this, which is suppress your emotions, suppress your emotions. And so, of course, when you're having the emotions and you can't suppress it, you're going to deal with negative coping skills, addiction, thinking what life would be like without you, thinking you're unworthy because now there's something quote unquote wrong with you because for years of your life, you've been told to suppress your emotions.
Yeah. It's either internalized, where it
Mm-hmm.
becomes depression, suicidal ideations, or it's externalized, right, through anger and things of
Yeah,
that sort, right? So being able to acknowledge your emotions as being real and authentic, right? And then
absolutely.
not only then will you be able to get help potentially, right? So now tell us about this wellness program, Change Your Algorithm. That's your baby, right?
My baby. It's Change Your Algorithm is a free mental wellness program that has volunteer therapists that lead classes online, also here in Los Angeles. The whole program, as I talked about my experience in rehab, is based off of that, where you attend classes and a therapist basically just educates people on how you practice forgiveness, how the subconscious mind works versus the conscious mind, how to practice gratitude, how to be mindful, how to use meditation as a coping skill, how to observe your thoughts, how to set boundaries, how to, strategies for anxiety, depression, and getting out of a toxic relationship. All of these things that we don't have classes for when we were in grade school, high school, or college,
Right.
you know? And so people can go online absolutely for free. My day job is in television, so I keep it absolutely for free, and it's so great to see it expand. It's been in existence now for about 16 months, and other countries are doing their own versions of Change Your
Oh,
Algorithm, such as
wow.
Canada, UK, Italy, Malaysia, and then, well, I'm forgetting one. Canada, UK, Italy, Malaysia. What am I doing? Oh, Indonesia. There
Wow.
you
And
go.
they extended from your program. That's excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. hmm Hopefully,
And
mental health talk can be the same.
uh, it will be. Honestly, the way I approached it, I still had my executive producer hat on, and
hmm
I was very much like, all right, the website's got to look cool.
Yeah.
The flyers have to look kind of like hip and edgy and young
Uh-huh.
because no one's going to want something that's scary to them. I remember being in the subway once and I saw a poster of saying, "Are you depressed? Is this you?" And then the photo was this person passed out in the subway with an empty paper bag. And I'm like, that's not
Yeah.
me.
Perception is everything, right?
And I do think that people have this misconception that it's not going to spark curiosity or that it's not fun to learn
Mhm.
about,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I will say this again. When you speak up about mental health, you're validating everybody else's experiences. You're normalizing it. So, it's not going to make you look bad or anything. It's actually going to make you stronger mentally, right? Um, and that's what it's all about. So, I have a question. One person wrote in, what advice actually would you give someone? A lot of people are afraid to come out or afraid to, you know, um, say aloud who they really are, right? What advice would you give to these young kids or anyone for that matter with respect?
The advice I would give is that there's nothing wrong with you and that you are perfect just the way that you are. And if someone does not accept you for that, it does not affect your self worth. Your self worth is defined by you and only you. The thing with life is that we're always going to be judged. And as soon as we accept that we're always going to be judged, the happier we're going to be because now we don't have to start living for other people and trying to please other people.
Right.
If I lived my life trying to please everyone in my life, I would have no time for what Joel wants to do.
Mhm.
So, understanding that self worth is defined by you and only you, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Beautiful. And I often tell people we are our biggest critics.
Yeah.
Other people judge us, but it's like when we judge ourselves,
Yeah.
I think it's worse.
Yeah.
I think it's worse because then we start uh, manifesting behaviors to validate what we're thinking about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it stands in a way of growth and movement, right? Even mental health and group and movement, it stands in the way and it just stops you, right? So that's what we're talking about, guys, about loving yourself, being able to love yourself, because we are our biggest critic. So if we don't love ourselves, then guess how we're gonna, portray that, right?
Absolutely.
Another question is, what advice would you give young people who are interested in breaking into the TV industry, especially toward time and patience?
Ooh, that's a great question. So if you want to break into the television industry, I would say that understand what your craft is, what you're good in, and then being able to take that out of your thoughts and start putting it in other things like videos, photos, whatever it is that you want to do in entertainment. Because a lot of times people have these ideas and then they go around, they're like, I just got all these ideas, man. I got all these ideas. But they're not really doing anything about it. And don't feel like if you're doing something and no one watches it or no one does anything, guess what you're getting out of it? Experience, right? You're not going to get like the million views like in the first thing, and then all of a sudden you're going to be a TV host. There's so many amazing hosts, actors, singers, actresses that have done this for a while, but it's really just leading up to experience. Remember that the blessing is in the other side of the battle. And so when you're going through that painful battle, just know that you're gaining that experience. You don't want the opportunity when you're not ready, because you're gonna, poop the bed, as they say, right? Like this experience is getting you ready for the opportunity. And so nothing. Oh, by the way, the other thing is to change your definition of failure, because I see a lot of people here in Los Angeles trying to break into entertainment, and then they feel like I failed this audition, I failed not getting that job. But again, you've gotten something out of it. You learned something out of it, and then it's made you better and stronger for the next opportunity.
Yeah. Excellent. Cognitive restructuring, right? Turn it into a positive, right? Don't look at it as failure, look at it as experience. The more and more interviews you get, the more better you become.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nelson Mandela said, I never lose, I win or I learn. And that is one of my most favorite quotes.
Now, do you have to move to California to become successful
Well,
in the industry?
with this pandemic life, clearly not. That's actually the nice thing about what's going on right now, is that the world's a little bit more forgiving. Entertainment's a little bit more forgiving. However, when you are filming a show, you do want to be able to be in one of those major cities, Los Angeles, New York, Miami, Atlanta, wherever a lot of filming takes place, because, in order to film something, you are going to want to actually be on set. However, if you're doing an internship or just getting your feet wet in those development meetings, virtual is 100% okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, guys. Today, this has been an awesome discussion with TV producer Joe Relampagos. Again, guys, this is Dr. Leslie Rogers, host of Mental Health Talk, and we will see you soon. Until next time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leslie. Such a pleasure. You're amazing. Thank you for having me.